I saw your posters, the posters of people who are opposing this event, and it said three things. It said homophobic, I think anti-Semitic was the first one, homophobic and right-wing. Anti-Semitic, to say I'm anti-Semitic is simply evil. There is now an open letter of influential Jews who oppose that this word anti-Semitic is being used to shut down anybody who speaks against the mainstream. This is what is happening. And I had a lawsuit in Germany because on a stage in Berlin, I was accused, an actor said, I'm Gabriele Kuby, and I put out hatred against Jews. I took them to court and I won the case on the second level. So be a little bit careful, and you're not doing any good service to anybody who is alarmed, as I am as a German, not alarmed, deeply shocked of what happened to the Jews in Germany. So please don't do that, number one. Number two, homophobic. You know what a phobia is? It's a neurotic fear. If a spider crawls up the wall and I scream, this is phobia. The fact that I'm talking here in the face of obviously many people who are on the woke side of this culture shows I have no fear. And I don't have any fear because we are all human beings and we have all a heart which yearns for love. Number three, she's right-wing. I think it was formulated a bit more radical. What's wrong about it? If we have the left, we need a right. And if we only have a left wing and no right, you know what this is called? Totalitarian. And this is where this woke culture is leading our democratic societies into a totalitarian society. I thank you for inviting me. I have to congratulate you to your courage to invite a person who insists that there are only men and women. This is dangerous, and it needs 6 security guards to come in to protect me. Isn't that mad? Don't you think this is utterly mad? Are you not worried about the state of our society? If it needs security, if there is somebody who says, there's man and woman, I think we have to, I make a plea for marriage, for family, father, mother, children. And you will hear what else I have to say. I will talk about love, and I will talk about the sexual revolution. And the title was How to Survive the Sexual Revolution, how not to become a victim of the sexual revolution. And I think that you also must want to have a society where these things can be said in freedom. You can leave, you don't have to listen, you can live however you like. But why don't you allow a person to speak something which is maybe beyond your own worldview? Why don't we have a discussion? I'm glad you are here. It's rare that I have the opportunity to speak to people who are at the front of the woke culture, as I suppose quite a few of you are, as when I saw what's happening outside. It's rare that I have an opportunity to speak to you. I'm glad I can speak to you. And I will give you my talk, and then you can ask questions. And please, there was also a Facebook thing, which probably brought many of you here, that I'm spreading hatred. I want you, if any one of you can put his finger that I'm spreading hatred, please get up and say so. And if I don't, please get up and say so. I appeal to your honesty. So, I come from Bavaria. probably you know from Munich, in fact, probably you know, when you hear Munich, you know about the Oktoberfest. That's why many people come, by the millions, and they have to dress in a special way. Probably you all know, they have to dress in dirndls, which shows what a woman is, and they dress in Lederhosen, which shows what a man is. All traditional cultures emphasize what it is to be a man and what is to be a woman, because it is important for our society, for the viability of our society, to have a clear identity of man and woman. It is, of course, societies have different cultural imprints of the identity of man and woman. I'm a sociologist by training, and sociologists are very interested how in any culture is the prototype of man and the prototype of woman. This differs very much. It is very different in Islam. It is very different to Christianity. And I think Christianity gives the greatest freedom to women that any society does. Please, if you have a different opinion, let me know. It is the very first time in the history of humankind that the binary structure of the human being as man and woman is being contested. This is what you learn in university. This is what you even begin to be put into your heart and your brain in kindergarten. If the fact that we are either man or woman is deliberately shaken by an ideology, we get into trouble. And we are in trouble. Every society regulates its sexual norms fiercely. It protects them by custom, law, and religion. Why? Because the cultural edifice depends on them. Formerly, strict moral laws protected the sexual norms. It was virginity before marriage and monogamy. Sex only in marriage. That was the moral foundation of Christianity, which brought about the magnificent European culture copied by the whole world. Now you learn at universities, this is the culture of old white men. I'm proud of that culture, and I receive inspiration from those sources. Today, every deviation from heterosexuality is protected by law. Any opposition is criminalized and persecuted. As you see here, that I need 6 security guards to give a talk on these subjects. I am a witness of the sexual revolution. I studied sociology at the Free University of Berlin, West Berlin, of course, and sympathized for a little while with the left movement. At that time, a wall divided Berlin, the Iron Curtain, and nevertheless, this generation of students, 68 is the symbol for it, was mobilized into Marxist communist thinking, which is very strange because we all knew what that meant, a terrible suppressing state, the DDR of East Germany. We all knew that, and nevertheless, all of a sudden, there was this exhilaration about Marxism and all other socialist thinkers. This 68 revolution had 3 topics: communist ideology, sexual so-called liberation, and radical feminism. Radical feminism was against motherhood, it was against marriage, it was for free sex. If you say free sex, you have no marriage anymore, and the leaders were all lesbians. I, at the time, sympathizing with the left-wing movement, said, oh, well, if they are against motherhood, we don't really have a future. You know, I was able to say 2 and 2 is 4. And so I was not really involved in feminism because I thought this is the wrong idea. And I'm very happy that I am a mother of 3 grown-up children and of 5 grandchildren. I'm delighted, and it's the joy of my life, these grandchildren. Let me tell you, since I'm a time witness, what the European culture looked like before the sexual revolution. When I started, this was just the break. 68 is the symbolic year. The great majority of the population were Christians. Nobody doubted that the human being was either a man or a woman, and that only women could bear children. Marriage was between a man and a woman, as it had been in the whole history of mankind, sometimes more than woman, I must admit, especially in Islam. But never anything like same-sex marriage. The ideal of sex only in marriage was upheld. The fact that this norm is difficult to keep is the content of the great literature of the West. It is difficult, yeah? And we read all the novels where these difficulties are portrayed, but the ideal was still there. If unmarried couples were not allowed to sleep in the home of their parents, if you wanted a hotel room, you had to prove that you are married by showing your identity card. Not so long ago, just 50 years. Family was defined as mother, father, and children who were giving life to children and took responsibility to bring them up. Divorce was rare, and the judges had to discern who was guilty of breaking the marriage. Mothers cared for their small children. The killing of unborn children was a criminal act. In films, maybe sometimes you see films of the 60s, the only thing you saw was a kiss with closed lips. The rest was left to your imagination. Homosexuality was forbidden by law, albeit not enforced. It was kept in private. Pornography was forbidden. Adults protected the innocence of their children. There was no sexualization of children in school by force of state. Now I'm ashamed to tell adults what is happening in the sexual education with children. It used to be the other way around. Depression and psychological disorders among children and youth were rare. Fast forward 50 years. Let us look at the changes which happened in half a century. Christianity is in decline. In the course of my talk, I will talk about God, and I'm aware that many of you think this is some kind of thinking which we have overcome. So I warn you, I will talk about God. The political powers actively fight against remnants of Christian culture. The ideal of sex only in marriage is discarded. Living together before marriage has become normal and accepted by the whole of society. Marriage rates dropped, divorce rates skyrocketed, up to half the children are born out of wedlock. Contraception became normal also for Christians. Abortion, the killing of unborn children, was legalized step by step. The communists were the first who, in the Russian Revolution of 1917, legalized abortion. And in communist countries, it was a normal way, having 5, 6, 7 abortions of family planning. In most Western states, abortion is now legal up to the 12th week. In 2021, the European Parliament accepted the Matic report that declared unlimited abortion a human right. Please look into abortion methods, what happens if you kill a baby which is nearly due to be born. I look it up, and if you are not shocked, I will be surprised. Gender ideology proclaims a social sex that is independent of the biological sex, ascribed to a person at birth. It denies the binary structure of the sexes and proclaims gender fluidity. You can now choose your gender identity from 60 or 70 different types. I'm sure you find your identity. People with beards can be pregnant. Google has 2 emojis for pregnancy: a pregnant person and a pregnant man. People who affirm the biological fact of binary sex are persecuted. like the former Interior Minister of Finland, Päivi Räsänen, who had to go through several stages of judiciary persecution because a few years ago she said, as a Christian, sex belongs into marriage. You are persecuted and taken to court if you say things like this. I'm still free. Who knows what is going to happen? Same-sex marriage. The institution of marriage is redefined by law and open to same-sex couples with all that entails. Adoption of children by same-sex couples, artificial reproduction, surrogate motherhood. I write about it in detail in the books that are there. If you look into the details how all this is happening, it is pretty ugly. The LGBTIQ movement triumphed in all levels of society, from academia, state institutions, judiciary, down to kindergarten. All moral limitations of sexual activity have been overturned. Definition of family is changed. It is no longer father and mother bonded through marriage, giving life to children and bringing them up. Single-parent families, patchwork families, rainbow families are presented as different types of families of equal value to kindergarten, kinder, and at school. In reality, they are broken families causing tremendous suffering to all involved. And I speak from experience. Divorce. One can walk away if one has enough of one's partner. Collective daycare. At the time, 68, we thought this is a communist model which we will never adopt. It is a communist model. Mothers give their small children into daycare institutions in order to work and earn money. Entertainment. Almost all films show explicit sexual scenes which stimulate the sexual drive of the viewer. So does advertising. Pornography has become a global plague and brings in more money than the oil industry, so I'm told. The industry depends on human trafficking. Child pornography is the fastest growing market. It is normal for adolescent children to watch pornography in their smartphones. This is often their first information children get about sexuality, which really is very, very sad if we think what happens to children. Sexualization of children. Children beginning in kindergarten are sexualized by force of state. The human right of parents to educate their own children according to their own values is undermined. A transgender hype has been created by the media. Thousands of girls in puberty want to become boys and are supported by law to ruin their lives with puberty-blocking hormones and even surgical mutilation of their body. Totalitarian measures enforce the sexual revolution. This is indeed a revolution. It is a top-down revolution. Revolutions usually, the revolutions we learn about in history, there is suffering on a low level of society and the people revolt against the hierarchy and want more justice. This is different. There was no social movement, there was no big suffering that people knew they were either men or women. It is created from above, it is a top-down revolution. It is a revolution on the level of anthropology. The main woman who brought forth the gender ideology is Judith Butler, a US American philosopher. The title of her book is Gender Trouble, Feminism and the Subversion of Identity. So she says it clearly in her title, what she wants, subversion of identity. The question is, who is man? Is he just a higher animal? Or is he created in the image of God? You can choose. Is all this progress? All this is sold to us as progress. Are we better off? Are we in a better world? Do we have more freedom? Do we have a pluralistic, tolerant, democratic society where you can say what you think? Do we have less discrimination of the vast majority of the population? Do we have respect for human rights, the right to life, the right to family, the right of parents to educate their own children? Do we have a healthy, optimistic young generation? Are we happier? Are we healthier? Do we look into a bright future? The answer to all these questions in my mind is no. But all these things were and are promised to us by the Marxist revolutionaries of our time. They proved to be nothing else than effective carriers of propaganda and manipulation. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we had a golden past to which we should return. There is no golden age. Human life is never a golden age. The good life cannot be brought about by structures, but only by educating people in a way that they want to be good. If they want to be good don't want to be good by themselves, you will not have a good society. But you can create structures where it is very difficult for people to choose good over evil. What are the consequences of this top-down revolution? Family breakdown. The number of divorces in a year is close to the number of marriages. In Germany, each year around 200,000 children are orphaned by divorce. Anyone of you who is a child of divorce knows the pain that this inflicts into your life, and it's ongoing. It doesn't stop with the divorce. It will stamp your life. Abortion. According to the latest numbers of the World Health Organization, each year 73 million children are killed before they are born. That is 13 times the population of Norway. Children in Norway can change their sex from 6 years onwards if one parent agrees. Just imagine, there's conflict between the parents, and the child with 6 years takes sides with the parent who says, yes, you're a boy, but it's fine if you become a girl. What happens to that child? Depression, suicide attempt, drug abuse, anorexia, internet addiction are skyrocketing. Huge increase through Corona. In Germany, I know the numbers, and the young people who are simply addicted, pathologically addicted to internet and social media has doubled during Corona, which is no surprise because what else could they do? Demography, that will catch you because you will be in the age of having to produce, be productive enough to feed the old people if they are not killed by euthanasia. Demography, European nations are on a course of demographic suicide. Totalitarianism, people lose their job if they refuse to use the desired pronouns. They are persecuted if they pray silently on the street or make the sign of the cross in the vicinity of an abortion facility, as happened in the United Kingdom, the cradle of democracy. To speak in favor of sexual moral limitations to sexual activity is persecuted as discrimination. What does this mean for you? The future lies in the hands of the next generation, that is you. The normal drive of youth is to build up a better society, to do something good with your life. Only this gives your life meaning. Only this will satisfy your conscience and give you inner peace. All ideological systems break down sooner or later. Nature is stronger. Truth is stronger. Truth can be suppressed, but it cannot be killed, because God is truth and truth is God. You are needed, each one of you is needed to build up a society where the dignity of man and woman are respected, where life is protected, where the family can flourish, where the needs of children and youth are put first before the desires of adults, where the longings of your own heart can be fulfilled. If the tearing down of sexual morality is at the core of the destruction of our society, what must your answer be if you want to survive the sexual revolution, to put your sexual life in order? I was awakened to all these issues in the beginning of 2000 by a book by an English anthropologist, J.D. Unwin. In 1936, he published a book, 600 pages, called Sex and Culture. He was not a Christian. He said, if I had known what the result of my research will be, I might not have written the book. The result was high culture, the culture which we are just destroying, can only survive if there are strict moral laws for sexuality. That means virginity before marriage and monogamy. I'm just telling you the outcome of research. Yeah, this is the outcome of research, of his research. And he says there are always waves, strict morality, then the culture goes down, then it picks it up again. And it's the most painful process for a society to come back to strict moral laws. I'm referring to you what this man, J.D. Unwin, in his research, anthropological research, Sex and Culture, says. I read this book and I said, oh, interesting. It was my eye-opener, and from then I put my focus on sexuality and wrote my first critique of gender ideology in 2006, which was very early, and people thought I was exaggerating. Now nobody thinks anymore I was exaggerating. What does, I said, bring your sexual life in order? I hope for your arguments later. Okay. What does order mean? I believe that there is order in the universe, that this universe is created by God. My belief, you can believe something else. If there's no God, we have to believe that nothing brought about this universe and this magnificent world into existence. There is divine order to which man has to adapt if he wants to live in harmony with his social and natural environment and with himself. This is called the ecology of man. The order of creation is inscribed in the longing of our own heart. Maybe you don't remember the Beatles. I don't know whether anybody still now and again hears the Beatles, yes? There was this song when I was your age, the Beatles were all the time in our ears. All you need is love. It's true. What does every human heart long for from beginning to end, from the moment of conception to death? Love. We are bombarded with the slogan, love is love, meaning that any kind of sexual interaction between two or more human beings of any sex is love. But think of a moment where you actually experienced love. If it doesn't come to you now, think of a moment, maybe later on, where did I experience love? And then find out what was the quality. And you will find out that somebody made a sacrifice for you, because that is the ultimate proof that somebody actually loved it. They put you first and themselves second. That is a criteria for love. The first encyclical of Pope Benedict XVI, who, as you know, has just died, and I went to Rome to be present at his funeral because I admire his work tremendously, has the title Deus Caritatis, God is love. He first speaks about the different kinds of love, about philia, the love of friendship, about eros, sexual love, and about agape, the highest form of love. A quotation from his Deus Caritas Est: agape expresses the experience of a love which involves a real discovery of the other, moving beyond the selfish character that prevailed earlier. Love now becomes concern and care for the other. No longer is it self-seeking, a sinking into the intoxication of happiness. Instead, it seeks the good of the beloved. It becomes renunciation, and it is ready, even willing, for sacrifice. End of quote. If a person uses you as an object for his or her desires, you feel used and not loved. If both agree to use each other for their own satisfaction, they may have an illusion of love, but it is not love and it will not last. We are persons, we are not objects. A person is a unity of body and spirit. This unity is fragile. Transgender claims the power of the spirit over the body, which is an old Gnostic stream of thought. No time to explain that. I'm in the wrong body, say transgender people, so I will change my body and harm my body intentionally. Others allow the body to rule over their spirit through addiction, for instance, by sexual addiction to pornography. In a healthy person, body and spirit are integrated in harmony. If you have had the experience of falling in love, which is very hard to come by in our culture, because the roots of that ability are being destroyed through sexualization, and that many of us come from broken families where we have neither an example nor teaching what it is really about. But if some of you have had the experience of truly falling in love, what does your heart say at that moment? You and only you and you forever. Anybody who has deeply fallen in love, this is what your heart says. Then comes the problem to realize that, and it's the walk of a life to realize love in a life course. Maybe for many of you this sounds like a romantic illusion of the past, and you don't believe that it is possible for you. But what does your heart desire? What did you desire as a child? What does every child desire? You wanted parents who love you, parents who put your needs before their needs. Them Before Us is a famous book by Katie Faust, an American writer. Parents naturally do that. Parenthood is the school of life for overcoming our own egoism. You wanted parents who love each other. You wanted parents who rarely quarrel with each other. You wanted parents who are faithful to each other. You certainly did not like a lover of your mother or a mistress of your father, or the second partner of your mother or father. Your heart screams. The heart of every child screams, and I speak, again I say it from experience. This is not right, but you're not allowed to scream. You have to put up with the situation. And you wanted parents who stay together for life. I told you already, I have 5 grandchildren. I have 5 grandchildren and 3 children. And I now see this total trust children bring towards their parents. This total love, how they chase to the door if mother or father come back. This is what they want. This is what they get now, my grandchildren. And it is very, very detrimental if we break this trust of little children. If you have such parents, you are truly privileged and blessed. Most of us don't. Most of us are wounded. Since the family is the place of intimate relationships, this is the place where we do get wounded at all times. Read the Bible and you see any kind of sin is portrayed in the Bible. Since Eve and Adam ate the forbidden fruit, we live in a broken world. But does this mean that anything will be better if we dissolve the family? If we have only one parent or two men or two women as parents? If we have three mothers, one who donates the egg, another one who carries the embryo to term, and a legal mother? Or if our father has sold his sperm at the bank and we have no idea who he is, will that be a better world, I ask you? What choices will you make? If you want a family of your own and are blessed with children, will you fulfill the desire of their heart? Will you grow with your spouse and with your children to be able to truly love and grow towards agape? Or will you inflict the same wounds on them as you carry in your own soul? It is likely that you will, because it is the human tragedy that we unconsciously do the same thing to others as was done to us, unless we undergo formation, self-education, work on ourselves, and healing. Maybe some of you say, no, I don't want children. I want to have sex with whom I like, with men, with women, with both, recreational sex, no bonding. I enjoy pornography. Masturbation is good enough for me. Of course, I use contraception, and if that fails, there's still the possibility of getting rid of the lump of cells. Maybe this is what you learned in school. Our Western societies seem to have agreed that this is the best way of dealing with our sexual drive with which we are created. It is a so-called hedonistic approach to sexuality, and this is what the European Union and the United Nations spread to all cultures of the world. In the poor countries, they do it by blackmailing. They only get economic aid if they accept so-called reproductive rights that are antagonistic to their own culture in Africa and some countries in Asia. The package called reproductive rights includes contraception, abortion, same-sex marriage, and sex education for children. The media show hardly anything else than hedonistic sex arousing the sexual drive of the viewer. No wonder we have masses of sexual abuse of children. Also in the church, I know, and it is absolutely terrible, but much more in the general society. They show nothing else, and they show the chaos, the betrayal, the addictions, the despair, the depression, the psychological disorders, the crime that follows from dissolving all moral limitations of sexual activity. Those are the victims of the sexual revolution, survivors of abortion in a family where some of the siblings have been aborted. New research shows that this has an effect on the children who were allowed to live, because they now know, oh, my parents can decide whether I live or whether I don't live. Children deprived of basic trust by being put into collective daycare as a toddler or even a baby. Children of divorce having to grow up with only one parent or in a patchwork family. Products of artificial reproduction obliterating intentionally the hereditary lineage. We all want to know where we come from. Everybody, adopted children, go and search for their parents. We want to know where we come from, and this is now intentionally obliterated. People deprived of the vision of marriage and family and love through a sexualized culture and sex education. Many of us are victims of the sexual revolution. But there's good news. We are created with free will. We don't have to be a victim of the sexual revolution. We can become builders of the new world to come. You can liberate yourself from so-called sexual liberation. What do you want for your own life? What does your heart say? This is what the human heart desires if it is not blinded by sexual propaganda and hedonistic sexuality. I want to build a life founded on love. I want to find my vocation. I want to have a family and children. I want to be a good mother and a good father who does not pass on the wounds that I received. I want to be a person worthy of a worthy partner. I want to have joy and goodness and beauty in my life. I want my life to be meaningful and fulfilled. This is only possible if we grow, I'm using a word which sounds outdated, in virtue. Has anybody ever spoken to you about virtue? The concept has become unfashionable. It seems outdated. We speak of desires and wants and rights. I desire, I want. It is my right to produce a child by artificial insemination or surrogate motherhood, or to kill it if I don't want it. It is my human right to marry a person of the same sex. It is my right to change my sex with 6 years of age. Modern philosophers deny that there is immanent meaning in the created world, which the Greeks called telos. Telos is the immanent meaning of being. There's meaning in this created universe. There's meaning in our body. There's meaning in everything that exists. The lawmakers have thrown away natural law. The politicians have dropped the concept of the common good, so that my rights and my desires have priority, even if it is the tiniest minorities of our society. But somehow, the world fails to deliver the good life and happiness that people hope for once their desires are fulfilled. The philosophers of antiquity, Plato and Aristotle and Thomas of Aquin, to name the most famous ones, thought deeply how man must deal with his God-given freedom to master life. We can choose good, we can choose evil. Good makes demands on us. Evil first seems cheap, later on we have to pay a high price. Often we cannot take it back. The voice of conscience will tell us what is good and what is evil if we are willing to listen to it. Listen to what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says about virtue. Quote, "Human virtues are firm attitudes, stable dispositions, habitual perfections of intellect and will that govern our actions, order our passions, and guide our conduct according to reason and faith. They make possible ease, self-mastery, and joy in leading a morally good life. The moral virtues are acquired by human effort. They are the fruit and seed of morally good acts. They dispose all the powers of the human being for communion with divine love." End of quote. Sounds good, I think. We want ease, self-mastery, and joy in our life. There are 4 cardinal virtues. They are called cardinal because all the other virtues branch out from these 4 cardinal virtues. They are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. Prudence is right reason in action. Justice is constant and firm will to give their due to God and neighbor. Fortitude is the virtue that ensures firmness in difficulties and constancy in the pursuit of the good. Temperance is the virtue that provides balance in the use of created goods. Do we like people who are stupid, unjust, cowardly, and addicted to their passions? Do we like ourselves if we are stupid, unjust, cowardly, and addicted to our passions? No, we don't. We would all like to be around people who have these character qualities, and we would like to have them ourselves. But they are hard to come by. Our society is not geared to virtue. It is geared to extreme selfishness. Virtues are acquired by education and personal striving to build up our character. We always fail until the end of our life. Therefore, I say this as a Christian believer, we need input from above, which is called grace. We need forgiveness. We need a compassionate and forgiving God to progress on this path. And we have a compassionate and forgiving God. How will you build a good and meaningful life for yourself? Do you agree that tearing down of sexual morality is at the core of the destruction of the individual person, of the family, and of society? Do you agree that the desire of children to grow up in a stable, loving, low-conflict, lifelong marriage of a man and a woman should be fulfilled? If so, how will you deal with your own desire for love and sexual satisfaction? How will you use your God-given freedom? Will you try out a row of men or women until you find the right one? Will you move in together long before you decide to marry and have children? This is the normal way of living for young people today. If so, you have to use contraception, of course. For many years you say, sex yes, baby no. I want sex with you, but I don't want you as a father of my child or as a mother of my child. The child is no longer a gift from God. It is the greatest gift we can receive. But a commodity is no longer a gift from God, but it is a commodity that you want or don't want. Nature responds to our contraceptive mentality by more and more men and women becoming infertile. A great tragedy for a couple who desperately wants to have children and pass on life. And what do you do if contraception fails and you discover that the sexual act led to its goal, namely the conception of a child? Marry the person you never intended to marry? Leave the woman and make her a single mother, deprive the child of her father? And if all that seems like a distortion of your life's plan, there's still the possibility to kill the child. In 2021, the European Parliament voted for a resolution to make abortion a human right. Through an abortion, the mother does not, what a pity they're not here. Through an abortion, the mother does not just end a pregnancy. She is from then onwards the mother of a dead child. So what is the obvious consequence if you don't want to be a victim of the sexual revolution? Reclaim the moral standards for sexuality, which were the very mark of Christians in contrast to their pagan environment. They protected sexuality in the social vessel of marriage. They did not kill their babies. They protected the innocence of their children. The tragedy is that in our time, in our culture, we fall back into paganism and its brutality. The moment of departure from Christian morality was the decision of the Lambeth Conference in 1930 to allow contraception, of course, only in exceptions. It's always the same strategy. You first allow something as an exception, and then it becomes normal. For 1,900 years, Christians knew that separating the sexual act from its life-giving function was against the will of God. If you want to make a change at the very crossroad where things went astray, what will you have to do? And I will now say something which is utterly controversial. I'm aware of it. Say no to contraception. This decision catapults you back into the greatness of the gift of sexuality, namely the unity of love and procreation. I tell you, I really thought, am I going to say this? Because I know that 99, a huge part of you will be against it. But I have the vocation to say the truth. And so I said, yes, I will say it. You can take it or leave it. Yeah. Love between a man and woman means that they make themselves a gift to the other, a gift of the whole person, of your heart and your body. The Bible speaks of becoming one flesh. This union brings about the procreation of a human being. The child is the unity of father and mother. It will forever consist of the chromosomes of father and mother. Therefore, the bond is so strong, and the rupture of the bond of the parents so extremely painful and traumatic for a child. But the child is more than genetics and biology. It is a human being with a soul. I have given birth, as I told you, to 3 children. Immediately when the baby opens the eyes, there is a person looking out, a self, a being, a soul. In the very few moments after birth, as soon as the baby can open its eyes, it looks. Where does the soul come from? The soul comes from God. It is eternal. Of course, there can be love between same-sex persons. But the slogan, love is deliberate confusion. Since the beginning of the 1980s, our Western culture has been exposed to an unceasing bombardment with homosexual propaganda. I write more about it in my books. This has changed the anthropological concept of man. It led to the redefinition of marriage and family, the creation of man and woman in his own image at all costs, whatever the costs are. All this is enforced increasingly by totalitarian measures. Very few dare to speak up for the truth of man created in the image of God. Maybe you noticed that the Nordic Bishops' Conference published a letter on the 5th Sunday of Lent, which is a really beautiful pastoral letter, which I all recommend you to look up on the internet, although some will be distributed here. Somebody has brought some copies. I encourage you all to read it. The bishops remind us of the covenant God made with those who survived the great flood. To ratify this covenant, God set a sign in the clouds. He said, quote Bible, Genesis 9, "When the bow is in the clouds, I will look upon it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature to all flesh that is upon the earth." End of quote. This symbol has been captured by the LGBT movement, a movement that is out to dissolve biblical and even biological anthropology and morality. The bishops speak of the dignity of all human beings and condemn unjust discrimination of any kind. But, quote from the bishops, "We declare dissent when the movement puts forward a view of human nature that abstracts from the embodied integrity of personhood, as if physical gender were accidental. And we protest when such a view is imposed on children as if it were not a daring hypothesis, but a proven truth. End of quote. The bishops oppose the idea that selfhood is produced by subjective self-perception, where we construct ourselves in our own image. Christians believe in the resurrection of the body. The unity of mind, soul, and body is made, so say the bishops, to last forever. One more quote from the bishops. If the church caved in to the aggressive gender ideology of our time, it would give up its raison d'être to lead the faithful to eternal life. That is what the church is for. On that path, the church wishes to embrace and console all who experience hardship. Our mission and task as bishops is to point towards the peaceful, life-giving path of Christ's commandments. We would let you down if we offered less. We were not ordained to preach little notions of our own. End of quote. A little more, but coming to the end. You are free. You can choose whether you see yourself as a descendant of an ape or as a child of God, created in his own image. You can split your body from your heart, sex from procreation, procreation from sex, the child from the mother, before and after birth. Allow me to end with a sketch of the high path of love. Again, I know I'm demanding much of you to listen to that, but just to sketch it. You are filled with the vision of realizing love in your life. You ask yourself, what are the essential features for which you look for in your future spouse? To consciously think about what is important for you will protect you from being a leaf in the wind, tossed about by your hormones and your emotions. You fall in love. You allow yourself a period of seriously getting to know each other, your values, your vision of life, your families, your friends. You abstain from sexual unity because sex always creates bonding, and with it the possibility of deeply hurting your soul if you split up. If your heart has been seized by love and then the person leaves you, you may not dare to take the risk again. I know quite a few young people who once really fell in love and they were left and they just will never take the risk again, which is understandable. Your hearts are set on the path of marriage and you get engaged, still allowing yourself a testing time before the final decision. It is an exhilarating time of joyful creativity in expressing your love. You prove to each other that you are not governed by your body, but a master of your sexual drive. Hopefully, you come to the point of taking the great leap. Yes, we want to go through life together. If a no is the result, it will be painful, but not traumatic. You celebrate this yes publicly with a wedding feast. You know you are in need of the blessing of God to walk the path of life, lifelong growing in love together. Therefore, you marry in church. In the Catholic Church, marriage is a sacrament, a holy bestowal of grace which strengthens the receiver to walk the path of life. Imagine you hear the words, I love you, and I have been waiting for you. The words, I love you, have the full weight of your will and of your heart and of your body. The white dress of the bride expresses truth, the purity of the bride. It is purity that gives a woman radiant beauty. Then, when you have prepared the shelter of commitment for sexual union, for becoming one flesh, as Genesis puts it, you give yourself to each other. You have prepared yourself for the greatness of the sexual act. A child may be conceived, a child with an eternal soul, the materialized unity of the love of the two of you. what joy, what ecstasy, what thankfulness to each other. This may sound like romantic musings of a time long lost, but far from it. It describes the path of a hero. It is completely countercultural. It makes high demands on your personality, your character, your willingness to overcome your weaknesses, your wounds, your vices, your sins. Are you able to create a vision for your life? Are you able to resist the constant arousal of your sexual drive through the media? Are you able to get out of pornography in case you are a consumer of pornography? The greatest degeneration of dignity one can possibly imagine. Are you able to hold on to your common sense even if you are taught at university that is an indefinite number of sexual identities and that you can change your sex at will? Are you able to stand alone against the mainstream? Are you able to refuse the deliberate ideological distortion of language? Are you able to take risks for speaking the truth in a sea of lies? All this is up to your freedom, despite the madness and pressure of the world around us. If you want to get out of the mess which the sexual revolution has produced, you have to walk the path of a hero. The cultural revolutionists have strong allies: the United Nations, the European Union, the governments, the global NGOs, high-tech, media, academia. But they also have strong enemies: reason, nature, and God, and most of the population. It is your generation that will shape the future. A heavy load is put on your shoulders. But, as I said, you have strong allies: reason, nature, and God, at most of the normal people of our societies. God needs every person to build up the new world. He needs you. If you give your life to him, he will fill you with hope and joy, and your life will be beautiful and fulfilling and meaningful. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm honestly thankful that you listened to me.
Bom, bom, bom. Det var lyd. Så bra. Thank you very much, Gabriele. It was very exciting to hear your viewpoints on this topic. Thank you very much. Ja, nå sier jo sånn at vi har lagt opp til en spørsmålsdel, en liten Q&A. Det er sikkert mange som sitter igjen med spørsmål som de lurer på.
Say something? Ask them whether there was hate. I want to know, was there hate?
Yes.
Yes? Hate?
No hate. No hate. Just love.
All right, please correct it. If any of you said there's hate, please make a notice on Facebook. There was no hate. I think, this is only honest. And there is no hate. I don't work from hate. I'm a Christian.
But skal vi se, og bare ved å holde roen litt i salen her. Jeg forstår det er blandet meninger i forhold til dette foredraget. Nå skal vi inn i denne Q&A-runden. So we're going to have a Q&A session.
Okay.
Yes.
They don't want it? We have a Q&A session.
Yeah, we are going to.
Okay.
Yes, we are. Så jeg stiller meg som ordstyrer der, Og dere som har noe på hjertet, dere må gjerne rekke opp en hånd. Så bare begynner jeg litt her, og tipper cirka et kvarter eller noe sånt, alt etter som. Men vi tar det derfra. Og ja, kan begynne med du.
I've been thinking a little bit about what seems to me to be a little bit of a contradiction from people on the left. There seems to me to be a bit of a contradiction, a sort of dual insistence on total and complete sexual liberation in most areas of life and society, and then at the same time there's also quite a strong insistence on a very sort of rigid, almost conservative approach to sexuality, where you have written consent forms to engage in a dance, to touch, to kiss, for intercourse, and I feel kind of puzzled by that. There seems to be two very different messages about sexuality. It's you know, it's full bulimia, it's liberated and free and not dangerous, and then at the same time it's so dangerous or so sort of laden with this tenseness that you have to have a written consent form. What do you think is going on? What is that?
Whatever you look and you see the contradictions, it never sort of dissolves itself. There's always contradiction wherever you put your focus on. And I mean, you just said it. Who wants that kind of sex? It's the absolute total opposition of being in love and giving yourself to the other. This is what our heart yearns for. And we can sort of be so blinded that this yearning is not there anymore. This is quite possible. And then we are afraid we might attract sexual disease and AIDS and this and that, and we withdraw the longing of our heart to experience love because it is so painful. So we put sex down to a level of recreation, of just having sex anywhere. You have apps where you meet, I don't know, just for one-night stands and so on. What does it do to the person? Yeah, and then you have to write a contract. Okay, we agree on this and this and this and this. Is this what you want? I don't think anybody wants it, but it just shows where all this leads to. These two ladies are very urgent to speak. Please.
Thank you. You told us to respond if you spoke hatred, and I do feel that.
You feel what?
That you speak hatred.
That I speak hatred?
Oh, yes, I do. It feels really hateful when you postulate a lot of problematic areas, in your opinion, but you don't give reasons for why they are problematic. As a person willing to love another woman, this feels like hatred. As a woman willing to bear a child, it feels like hatred. As a woman willing to do abortions, prescribe contraception. Yes, contraception. This feels like hatred. And you do postulate that the sexual revolution is a problem. As a postmenopausal woman, it feels problematic because what you say is that sex only belongs for insemination, actually, in combination with love. And you also say that love between...
I didn't use the word insemination.
No, you use the word procreation, which is... But you do mean the combination of semen and egg cells, which is the insemination. So yes, it does feel like hatred.
So we have to find some agreement on hatred. I wouldn't stay in a talk where somebody hates me. I would walk out. You know, why did you stay? And isn't there a difference? Hatred is, I want to annihilate the other person. I don't want to annihilate. That is hatred. Hatred is a very, very aggressive feeling which leads to violence. And it does lead to violence, what is happening in our society. That is hatred. And I'm hate because I don't want this person to be there, actually. if I hate. I have nothing like this. I want you to exist. I respect your dignity. If you have chosen a lesbian relationship, that is your free choice. I don't want you to be persecuted for it. I don't want you to be persecuted either. I respect your choice. But if my daughter would go into a relationship like this, I would still love her. But I would say, look what that means. And that would not mean hatred. But I would ask her to know what she is doing. This is not hatred. Let's have a definition. Hatred is not that you feel something is hatred. There is something we can agree on. If there is a term like hatred, it is aggressive and it tends to annihilate the other person. There was nothing like this. You must agree. There was nothing like this. I accept you. I would defend you even against aggression. If somebody was aggressive, I would defend you. I'm not against you. Yeah, I respect your dignity, whatever your choices are. But I want to tell you.
That's not what your talk was. Your talk was not respect. Not at all.
Jeg tror vi går videre derfra. Vær så god.
Yeah, I would also like to follow up some of these things, because you have said a lot of things you don't like. Like, for example, same-sex marriage, abortion rights, transgender people. But I couldn't hear any reason for why this is bad or evil, as you talked about later in your speech. You just talked about a lot of things that you think are bad, but you didn't give me any reason for why is this bad.
I don't think I can give a second talk now, but I advise my book. I've given many reasons in here, and I think I did say what are the fruits of the sexual revolution, and the fruits are not good. And this is what I said, yeah? So I think that was a reason.
You gave no reasons. Actually,
Okay.
it was just an opinion. It was not giving a reason that is possible to understand.
Jeg tror vi går videre derifra. Ja, vær så god.
So, about hate speech, I think it's good to define it as you wished for. You wanted the definition. I think these kind of talks are dangerous, not because of you, because you've actually learned some sort of rhetoric that is filled with positivity, a lighter note. You speak of love, you speak with positive words, but the message of which you speak and the people you mobilize, the movements you start from this, and the normalization of suspicion and feelings of otherness in society amongst the people you speak to, that's where the danger lies. The real danger I see lies in that where we sit after you've left with feelings of division between us and feelings of not understanding each other and being afraid of each other and being at war with each other. That is the danger, and that is the hate mobilization of it. It's not the literal words you speak. That was just a definition. What I actually wanted to say was something about falling in love. I think you said something that it must be hard to fall in love today. I strongly disagree, but I think that if you're full of shame all the time, and if you're full of fear, and you said something about you would be ashamed to talk about what was happening in sex education.
Yes.
I think if you fill your body with shame, it must be quite unhealthy and quite uncomfortable for you, and maybe a lot more. If someone is filled with shame in here and they find they can't fall in love, please, you need to do something about that, because that will be quite dangerous to you. Not the fruits of a sexual global revolution, I think. So seek out a therapist, I think, for your trauma.
Oh.
Jeg må bare legge til at vi får holde en grei tone, enten det er den ene eller den andre veien her i denne Q&A-sessionen. Så Så vi får ta neste. Ja. Do you want to reply on that one?
Yes,
Or-
yes, I want to reply. Thank you very much for your advice to seek out a therapist. If you look up, I'm only familiar very recently with what a rainbow kiss is. I don't want this to be taught to my children in school. And I will not repeat what it is. You can look it up on the internet. So to speak about this indeed fills me with shame, but I'm not filled with shame. But it is shameful that what is presented to our children, and I'm really engaged in protecting them as best as I can. I am not creating a movement. I wish I was. The movement is on the other side. The support, I said, you have strong allies. I mean, all the world, the towns are flagged with rainbow flags and so on. The power of the secular world is on your side. The separation is not caused by me. I say you have freedom, and I'm happy to speak to you. I'm happy to sit with you at a table, and perhaps we can get deeper into these topics. No problem for me. And I understand that if you live this kind of hedonistic sexuality, every one of us wants to be accepted. Everyone wants to be accepted by their surroundings. And if you are not accepted, you fight for acceptance. You have all the powers on your side. Where is the problem? The problem is on our side. I need 6 security guards if I can speak here. Yeah, and I'm just a single woman speaking, nothing else. Where's the danger? Where is the danger? And you can walk out the middle, you don't have to come. This is not the biggest audience one could possibly speak to. So maybe there are a few people who heard something which will help them to live a good life. And you will all get old at some point. It's not in your vision yet. What will your life be if you have a father from a sperm bank, surrogate motherhood, if you have aborted a few children? What will be the resume of your life when you get older? Freedom? Freedom, that's a very strange concept of freedom. Freedom is to choose good. If you choose evil, your freedom diminishes.
Well, I choose good and I choose love, so that's on me, I guess.
Okay. There.
Yes.
Pleasure listening to your talk. I would like to be a little bit vulnerable for a moment, because I am also a victim of the sexual revolution. I am, believe it or not, born of a mother and a father, raised by a mother and a father, but they eventually split. And so I was also split in two.
Exactly.
And for a long, long time, a little child desperately longed for mother and father to get back together. Even when times were tough, I longed for them to be a unity. Because who am I? How can I understand myself if the two people that are my origins are split apart? And the question I want to raise then is, having this experience deep inside my body and my soul, how can I, as a married man and wanting to have children, raise them up with this beautiful example that you wanted to make an outline for? Knowing that I carry this with me, do you have any practical advice for someone struggling with that?
Of course, yes. I believe in the possibility of healing. My life is a journey for healing. And I have experienced healing. And if you become aware of your wounds, that is essential. That you must know what you have experienced, because the normal dynamic of us human beings is to pass it on. So the first thing is become aware of what happened to you. Become aware and have not self-compassion, but somehow an acknowledgement of the wounds that have been inflicted on you. And from there, go on. And there are two ways of healing. One is therapeutic. There are many, many secular therapists. All they want to do is strengthen your ego. I don't think this is really a good idea. There are sometimes other therapists, and I've experienced them, or one of them, who is a believer himself, and he wants the ultimate aim is to experience yourself as a child of God. And if you come to that experience, then you can be a good father. And if you are a faithful person, have a practice of prayer, and whatever else your denominational path suggests to you, there is healing. And I urgently ask you, believe in the possibility of healing, and to know where you come from is the first prerequisite for that. God bless you.
Ja, kan du ta neste tone? Jeg kan gjerne holde mikrofonen.
I just want to ask how you are.
Oh, sorry. I need to turn it off.
Okay. I just want to ask how you can speak very highly of freedom when you also, in the same breath, do not allow your children the freedom of information in school to form their own opinions on all sorts of opinions or viewpoints. And also how you can say that you're only a person speaking words and that your words hold no power or no violence when you yourself is the child of a soldier of the German army when Germany was Nazi Germany, and your father is a self-described patriot. How do you put these two concepts together then? When you say freedom, but you also you say, I don't think there should be choice. Because people weren't, when you spoke about the Finnish politician who was, not, lost his job, that's because he holds a position of power.
It's a she, it's a woman, by the way.
My apologies. She holds a position of power in a parliament where she will affect the lives of other people and their ability to make choices. I just want to know how you can speak freedom and then also not allow people to make choices.
All right. I can see lots of anger in your face. I think it is important to get to the roots of that. The source of anger is not outside, it's inside of us. And I'm sure you have strong reasons for your anger. And I hope you find the source of that. Now, what... Answer my question. I will. The freedom. It needs a little bit of philosophical insight to have a true concept of freedom. Or maybe not even that. It just needs to look at our own experience. If the freedom, we are beings with free will, you and me and everybody. We can choose good and we can choose evil. And we have a conscience in our soul which usually tells us, if it needs education, conscience, it tells us this is good and this is evil. And if we look at, to kill children, normally people would say this is evil. And to bring up children well, people normally would say good. The problem for human beings is that it is difficult to choose the good and it is easy to choose evil. And if we choose evil, here's the candy, eat as much candy as you like, you will then pay with a bad health. Yeah. So first, evil looks very good, and it hides in propaganda. It hides, as the image goes, in a sheep clothes. Inside is a wolf. It hides, and you fall only later when you are into that path, and you have to pay the price. Now, my father, I'm really astonished where you get the information for. My father had to be a soldier. He wrote a book. He was a writer and journalist. He wrote a book, My War, which he thought would still be read after his death. there he shows that he always wanted to remain on the lowest possible degree of hierarchy, because he was an anti-Nazi from the very beginning. And I was brought up with the idea the Germans are the worst people on the whole planet. I have, whatever, this is how I was brought up. So please look at your sources. This is just mad. I mean, it just has no foundation at all. And I wish you the very best. I wish you that you find inside the sources which make us unhappy. It is never outside, it is always inside, and I tell you from the experience of a long life. Thank you.
Yes. Skal vi se, så noen på midtradet her. Du, Karen, med lue der. Hadde du et spørsmål I sted?
Sorry, I had a question about continuing on the person's question or comment before about divorce.
Just wait a moment.
I can hold it for you.
So the question is about divorce and families. So the idea that you proposed previously is that divorce is ruining the childhoods of...
I find it hard to understand you, sorry.
Your argument that you proposed previously is about divorces being harmful to young people. But the alternative is keeping the family together. And what happens with a child in an unhealthy, unlovingly family, which is the result of not divorcing?
Of course, I mean, we can ruin everything. Human life is difficult. To build up a good marriage and a family is difficult. It needs effort, it needs virtue. And there can, of course, be family situations where they have to, even to save the children, there can be very, very bad family situations. And sometimes if you have an alcoholic father who beats their children and their wife, of course you need separation. So there is no structure that makes you a good person. You have to want to be a good person and work on yourself to be a good person and find a good partner to build a good family. There's no structure by which you can be a good person. There was this young nobleman Tocqueville. At the end of the 18th century, he traveled to America because he was very interested in democracy in America. That's the book, the title of his book. And he traveled around America and said, how amazing democracy, that was a new model, which is just going down the drain at the moment, which I think is sad. You know, I really had a life where I had a certain belief in democracy. Anyhow, his result was, democracy is only possible on the foundation of Christianity, because Christianity teaches people to be good by their own wish. And this is what Tocqueville said. Read his book, it's quite interesting. We have a high judge, Böckenförde, he's dead now. He coined the phrase, Demokratie lebt von Bedingungen, die sie selbst nicht schaffen kann. Democracy lives on conditions which it cannot create itself. You see, democracy creates structures, but the condition on which democracy is dependent is, I can only repeat in these simple words again, that you have a population who are somehow taught to choose good and not evil. We will not get into discussion what is good and what is evil, but it should be obvious to anybody that this is a condition. And if we lose the bearings and the orientation and the education and the example, if we destroy the church, that was the task of the church, to teach people. But the church is now in desolation. Yeah? Well, I said what I have to say. And concerning the church, one more sentence. I converted to Catholicism a long time ago, more than 20 years ago, late in my life. And now there were these wonderful popes, John Paul II and Benedict. And now the church in Germany is just absolutely ruined. But this is a great distress to anybody who loves the church, the Holy Church. But everywhere, before Corona, I was invited around the world. And everywhere I meet young people who have a new relationship to Jesus Christ, a living relationship to Jesus Christ, and who are inspired and formed by that, and who really want to build up something new. They are preparing themselves for that. All people I know who are on the side of building a good, renewing society are Christians. I don't know anybody else. And this is also happening. Yeah, so I just wanted to say this at the side for my own hope, really, that there is also a renewal on the grassroots. And this letter of the bishops of the Nordic Bishop Conference is really beautiful. Again, the tone of voice of these bishops, they are there to spread a good message. The gospel, that's their task. And if they spread whatever that comes into their head, we don't need them. We don't need a church who goes along with mainstream. The task of the church is to say the truth against the mainstream. But very few bishops are there to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
This is going to be the last question.
Okay.
I was hoping for 15 minutes, but now it's more like half an hour.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I can talk as long as you like, as long as you stay here.
I can hold it.
Hello. Is it on? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw a post this morning from the philosophy department. Is anyone from philosophy here? Nobody.
One over there.
You must have posted it then. Well, it's fitting that this is the last question because the state of our epistemology here is quite bad. It seems to me that people are talking completely past each other.
That people what?
They're talking past each other. One side says something, another side hears something else. And I came here for the entertainment, to be honest. I don't feel strongly one way or the other, but really this has been a very, very good example of the broken state of our ability to talk. And I can see on the right side of the room here, there's a poster talking about your uncle trying to give nuclear weapons to Nazis. And I do not think that
God,
that
my
is
father, my uncle.
The core of this talk.
I have a few more
To
relatives.
be honest. So what is wrong with our discourse?
What is true discourse? I mean, first about my uncle, yeah? He's talking about Heisenberg. He is indeed my uncle. His blood is not in my veins. He is the husband of the sister of my mother. I will not get into this topic now. It is being you have to know something about it, get into the matter deeply to have an opinion about that. And I just advise you not to just pick something which fits into your ideology and use it as a weapon. This is below your level as an academic. You should actually look into the sources and get into the question. It is an important question. And it's important, so I can't get into that deep, that in depth now. Actually, you say how a dialogue, we are losing that because on many issues, because we say only what counts is my feeling. We drop out of rationality. We don't stay with the argument, and we have no culture where somebody says this and it's taken seriously, and I say it because I want to say the truth. And the other person says her or his thing because with all they know, they want to say the truth. And then we are combined in searching for the truth, and we will go into a difficult dialogue, which costs every side quite a lot, to say, aha, aha, this is what you mean. Did I understand you right? So this makes demands. And we now live in a society which is split, and we just put anybody immediately in an ideological box. And if somebody says this, then we know everything about the person, and we pick up these little information pieces. We don't make the effort to look whether there's any truth in it, which is, I think, really your duty as academics to do that. And every one of us would make a big contribution to our society if we did learn to go into a truthful dialogue. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I wish you all